Don Schlitz, the man who wrote The Gambler, died on April 16, 2026. Nashville barely blinked. No stadium tribute, no CMA spotlight. No radio host paused mid-song to say what should have been said out loud. And yet, if you grew up listening to country music, if you've ever hummed along in a pickup truck, or caught yourself singing words you barely remembered learning, Don Schlitz built some of those moments for you. Not one song, not two, a decade's worth. 24 #1 country hits, a Country Music Hall of Fame induction in 2017, a Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame induction in 1993, and a name that most fans still couldn't pick out of a lineup. Nashville signed the stars. Nashville put their faces on the albums. Nashville made sure that when you fell in love with a song, you fell in love with the name on the cover, not the man sitting in the room who actually wrote the words. This is the list they never wanted you to follow, all the way back to one name. These are 10 hits you love, secretly written by the same man. Number 10. The years nobody counted. Before the Grammys. Before The Gambler. Before any of it. Don Schlitz arrived in Nashville at 20 years old from Durham, North Carolina, with $80 in his pocket. No connections. No publishing deal. No guarantee of anything. He worked a day job as a computer operator at Vanderbilt University and spent his nights writing songs on Music Row, the stretch of 16th and 17th Avenue South where Nashville's entire publishing infrastructure was built. He shopped them to publishers who passed. He handed them to producers who filed them away. He played them for session musicians who nodded politely and moved on. Nashville had a word for people like him. Staff writer. That's Nashville's term for the invisible class. Songwriters under contract to a publishing house, paid a weekly draw against future royalties, with their songs owned by someone else the moment the ink dried. A polite way of saying, invisible. He watched other people's names go on records he'd built from the ground up. It taught him something about how the industry worked. He kept his mouth shut, and he kept writing. Number 9. 40-Hour Week for a Livin', Alabama, 1985. Here's where the list starts to feel genuinely impossible. Alabama were the biggest act in country music in the early 1980s. Country Music Association Entertainer of the Year awards in a row. Platinum records stacked to the ceiling. The defining sound of an entire era. Their 1985 hit 40-Hour Week for a Livin' was a tribute to the working men and women who keep the country running. Factory workers, farmers, nurses, and miners. It went to number 1 and became one of the most celebrated anthems of the decade. Don Schlitz co-wrote it. The same pen that wrote the philosophical card shark parable of The Gambler also wrote the blue-collar anthem that made arena crowds of factory workers feel seen. That's not one talent, that's several. And Nashville made sure only one name was on the poster. Number 8. Deeper Than the Holler, Randy Travis, 1988. Still in the Randy Travis machine. Still the same invisible hand. Deeper Than the Holler was about a love too big for ordinary language. A man reaching for every comparison he can find and coming up short every time. Co-written with Paul Overstreet, it hit number 1 in 1988. By this point, Schlitz and Overstreet had handed Randy Travis 4 number 1 singles in 3 years. 4. The label was scheduling Travis's acceptance speeches. Schlitz was scheduling his next writing session. Nobody mentioned his name at the awards show. That was the arrangement. Number 7. On the Other Hand, Randy Travis, 1985. The year before Deeper Than the Holler, Don Schlitz and Paul Overstreet had handed Randy Travis one of the most morally precise hits in 1980s country music. On the Other Hand is about a man standing at the edge of an affair, the pull of something new, the weight of the ring on the other hand. It flopped on first release. Then Travis's next single exploded. The label went back and re-released it. Number 1. 2 Schlitz compositions. 2 number 1s. Same artist. Same 12 months. Travis collected the plaques for his wall. Schlitz collected the royalty statements, the ones that ASCAP and BMI tracked through their licensing systems, statements the labels were never in any hurry to pay out on time. That gap between credit and compensation was the architecture. Number 6. When You Say Nothing at All, Keith Whitley, 1988. Keith Whitley had one of the most distinctive voices in country music history, raw, aching, honest in a way that couldn't be coached into a person. When Schlitz and Overstreet wrote When You Say Nothing at All, they built it for exactly that kind of voice. A song about the communication inside silence, about what someone's presence alone is capable of saying. Whitley recorded it in 1988. It became one of the defining moments of his career. In 1989, Whitley died of alcohol poisoning at 33. Alison Krauss recorded the song years later. A new generation found it. Through every era, the grief, the rediscovery, the streaming millions, Don Schlitz's name sat in the metadata. That's where Nashville kept it. Number 5. The Engine Room. By the late 1980s, Don Schlitz and Paul Overstreet had become the most quietly powerful songwriting partnership in Nashville. Neither name was ever in front of a microphone. Neither face appeared in a music video. Together, they had built cornerstones of the Randy Travis catalog, written across multiple labels, and quietly stacked more #1 songs than most producers ever manage in a full career. They were part of a generation of Music Row writers, men like Harlan Howard and Bobby Braddock, who were the actual architects of country music's sound while remaining deliberately, structurally invisible. Howard wrote, "I Fall to Pieces." Braddock wrote, "He Stopped Loving Her Today." And Schlitz wrote, "The Gambler." None of them were the face on the poster. Nashville had a specific appreciation for what they did, and a specific way of ensuring they stayed exactly where they were most useful. Invisible. You could not threaten the star system if you were not visible enough to be compared to the stars. The industry understood this. It enforced it quietly, one contract at a time. The songs got famous. The writers got paid. And never the two shall meet in public. Number 4. Forever and Ever, Amen, Randy Travis, 1987. Country Music Association Award, Single of the Year, Best Country Song Grammy Award. Forever and Ever, Amen is one of the biggest country singles ever recorded. The song transformed Randy Travis from promising newcomer to genre-defining superstar. It is the song played at weddings, at church picnics, at retirement parties where someone turns up the radio and the whole room sings without thinking about it. Co-written by Don Schlitz and Paul Overstreet. Travis was the face on the poster. Schlitz was the sentence underneath that nobody read. That's not bitterness, that's just the contract. Nashville built a system where the song belonged to the label, the artist's name drove the revenue, and the songwriter's name appeared in a font size that required deliberate effort to find. Number 3. The Night He Wrote It. He wrote The Gambler in 1976. After visiting his friend and mentor Bob McDill, one of the most decorated songwriters in Nashville history, and the man behind Good Old Boys Like Me and dozens of other country standards, Schlitz walked back to his apartment with the lyrics forming in his head. He sat down at his father's old Smith Corona typewriter and wrote it start to finish, except for the last verse. He spent 6 weeks crafting different endings before the final lines came. He knew what he had. He also knew exactly how Nashville worked. He started shopping it. Word spread among the writers who gathered at Songwriter rounds, the kind that would later become synonymous with venues like the Bluebird Cafe, where Nashville's invisible architects played their songs face-to-face with no one else in between. The industry took 2 years to figure out what to do with it. Number 2. How close it came to nothing. Don Schlitz recorded The Gambler himself first. His version went nowhere. Publishers were not sure what it was. Too narrative, too deliberate in its setup, too much like a short story and not enough like a hook. He kept shopping it. Bobby Bare, a country legend and one of Nashville's most adventurous interpreters, cut the first commercial version, but it was never released as a single. Others passed. Then Kenny Rogers heard it. Rogers was at a turning point in his own career, looking for something that could define a legacy rather than just extend a chart run. Producer Larry Butler heard it the same way Rogers did, not as a single, but as a statement. The Gambler was the song. Rogers recorded it. It became the defining moment of his career. The best country song. Grammy went to Don Schlitz. You had to read the fine print to find out. Number 1. The Gambler, Kenny Rogers, 1978. You know this song. You know it the way you know your own name. The way the words are already in your mouth before you've decided to sing them. Know when to hold them. Know when to fold them. Know when to walk away. Know when to run. Don Schlitz wrote those words. Alone. In 1976. Before anyone famous had agreed to record them. Before any label had said yes. Before any radio station had any idea who he was. He died on April 16, 2026. Country music lost one of the greatest songwriters who ever sat in a Nashville room, and the headlines were quiet enough to miss if you weren't looking. That's the ending Nashville wrote for him. It's the one line in the story he didn't get to author himself. If you've made it here, you now know something most country music fans never find out. The songs you love have architects. There's a person behind the words, not just a face on the album cover. Don Schlitz wrote some of the most permanent music in country history. Nashville's entire business model depended on you never going looking for his name. Now you have it. If you want more of the stories the industry buried, the session players, the producers, the songwriters who built the golden age from rooms you will never see, subscribe. We're just getting started.